Ayo, what's outside is within. The mind regulates the hand that masters the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is mightier still. The stargate to the mind's revealed. The vortex. Peace. Here we are again with Real Talk with Kevin. And this episode is mainly more focused about mental health. I thought that would be a good episode for us to shed some light on that in that department. Yeah, my first question to you, Kev, is about social media's influence. How do you believe social media affects individuals with their mental health, particularly among younger generations?
Well, where shall I begin? For me, you have to sometimes make a comparison to how it was before social media,
right.
And how the interactions were amongst young people, how simpler things used to be, how there was less emphasis on image, the inability to be able to bully people unless they're in front of you. The whole landscape's changed in regards to information that you can access, how you can treat people, and how you become addicted to social media itself, and what consequences that has for you, staying on screen for extended amount of time. So for young people, for me, there's a lot of pressure. It's created sort of a pressure cooker with a lot of different elements to it. So you got the image bit, you got the need to be liked, you got the buying and selling, illegal stuff. There's all kinds of things going on social media that have a serious impact on young people's minds. But the image for me, and the wanting to be liked, wanting people to follow you, puts a lot of added weight on young people's minds in regards to, it's like religion. There's people that lead religions and need to be followed. Everyone become their own sort of religious being now, want people following them like they're some sort of, I don't know, cult. They got influences
like a messiah complex.
Yeah, exactly, just like that. So once that starts developing on a certain level, it starts gathering momentum. That's when problems can start, because what happens when the momentum eases up? What happens to you then? What happens to your popularity? What happens to your self-esteem? What happens to your self-identity? There's too much going on for young people nowadays. They're so wrapped up and invested in it. And to a certain extent, it's quite strange, because it was only not too long ago that TikTok was banned in China. Like, unless you're not privy to that type of information, you start thinking, why have they allowed it here then? If it's having such a detrimental effect on young people, and I work in education, and I see the impact it has on them, and how even coming to school in the morning, they're fully focused on TikTok or Snapchat or whatever else. Nothing else matters. The outside world, they're oblivious to what's going on, and a lot of their communication is sort of through social media. So for me, a lot of pressure for young people, a lot of horrible stuff that you can observe on there. A lot of weaponry you can attain through social media. A lot of different types of drugs you can get through social media. Young people don't only smoke cannabis and get a lot of different strains of cannabis on social media, but edibles and all kinds of different things. So for me, it's quite a dark place for young people, especially when they come across and they're fascinated by the dark web.
You know what, just on reflection on what you just saying, I remember, don't quote me on this, I remember hearing that when it comes to China and those places, what they have is they only allow you 45 minutes on TikTok. And when you are on there, what's shown to you is uplifting stuff, positive stuff, educational stuff to help advance you, like maybe ways on how to do things and create things, make things and stuff like that. And I found that very interesting, that wow, they've given you a limited time, they're giving you stuff that's going to benefit you when you watch it, And then when I go onto my TikTok and I'm scrolling, I'm seeing a lot of ratchet stuff. I'm seeing a lot of like sell, you get me, in business and, you know, and I'm just thinking, where is that for us? Or the powers that be that are allowing us to have it over here, how comes they haven't chiseled out, you know, that sort of funnel for us?
I think it's, you know, for some people, they might look at class as a determining factor on control. So, you know, how do you want a certain section of society that haven't got control on their children, that need devices to keep them preoccupied, and another section of society, they're preoccupied with other activities because they got the money.
Yeah.
So there isn't this need to sit down your children with a device and have them watching all kinds of nonsense, and that can be controlled in a better way. You know, sometimes people might think there's a conspiracy to keeping certain people in a certain predicament, and their children and families reliant on devices. You know, so it depends what angle you're looking at things from, because for me, if you're thinking about people on ground level that haven't got much going on, that are impoverished, there's a lot going on in social media for those people, and a lot of bad stuff, more than anything else.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, can you discuss the impact of social media dealing with self-esteem and body image due to comparison with others?
I think for me it's quite disgusting that you can just open up your phone, open up a device, a tablet or whatever it is, and then next minute feel inadequate because there's someone on there that's looking so good, that's getting all these likes. You're struggling with your weight, you're struggling with your looks. You know, how else can your self-esteem, just by opening a phone, go low or be dented in that way? For me, it's upsetting. You know, you can't put people in it's like with TV. You know, you present things to people that are unattainable sometimes. That body is not unattainable for some people because of a condition or whatever. Acquiring that amount of wealth to get those goods or get those clothes to look a certain way, it's not attainable. So what's going to happen to your self-identity? What's happening to your self-esteem? Or what lengths are you going to go to attain these things? You know, and for those people, again, in those impoverished areas, what does that lead to? Criminality, and whatever else comes with that.
Interesting, man. I wanted to shine a light in the angle of anxiety and depression. Have you observed an increase in anxiety or depression linked to social media, like usage amongst clients that you may have worked in when we're dealing with therapy? And if so, how do you address this?
I haven't seen it so much with the clients that I've worked with. The older people, I suppose some of them will have certain issues, but they haven't come across my path yet. I mean, most of the impact that I see social media have on is on the young people, because in working in schools, and just understanding that we live in a new age where communication's different. You have to start thinking about who you are as a person, what age you are, and how you see the world. For me, looking at social media in a negative light can't be helped to a certain extent because of the generation that I come from. Young people exist in a time where they think carnival's good. I don't think carnival's good anymore. I don't think social media's good. They love social media. You know, the whole landscape's changed. So for young people, they embrace that. I mean, for some young people, it's a great thing. And there's no anxiety or depression. They can work with it well, and everyone works with social media in their own capacity. But for a lot of people, the anxiety alone is based a lot on image and likes. I can't think about, you know, it's like with relationships. social media has a detrimental impact on relationships. I in my day, I might walk down the road and like a young lady, and she looks really nice. I might have the bottle to talk to her or not. And whatever goes down, goes down. Now, when it comes to you being in a relationship now, I could be in a relationship and see someone in the street and then pass them. I'm not looking at them again. I might have a little look and walk past. They look nice. But now you just sit on your phone and your missus might be right there. She's really nice. But then you see 20 million women that look a lot nicer, a lot fitter. Temptation sets in. You keep on scrolling. Next minute you're messaging someone or something starts happening. You know, so there's people on edge in their homes with their own partners when the phone makes a noise. What's he looking at? What's she looking at? You know, so it's really, there's a unsettled existence for people, even in their own home, that could lead to sort of depression and anxiety, wondering, what's she up to? What's he up to? What's going on? I don't want to ask what you're doing on your phone. Should I ask? Shouldn't I do? You know what I mean? So, let alone that relationship element, that could instill some sort of anxiety, depression, but it's about how you see yourself. When your self-esteem's low, and you need it built up on social media, how are you going to do it? How are you going to feel when you're seeing everyone else looking better than you? You know, or people not commenting on your picture or on your profile or whatever. You're putting videos up and you're getting one look. Like, sometimes, to a certain extent, you're setting yourself up being on social media.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on digital detoxes? Do you recommend them to clients if they're struggling with social media related stress? Or would you recommend it? I
think it's a necessity. I think if you don't detox from it, you know, social media is a virtual world. You know, existing in that all the time, how much are you going to be able to deal with reality? You know, and that's the thing. There's a lot of people that are in that world, especially people that haven't got a lot of money, that are just locked in to that. Now, there has to be, when you're locked in, what are you doing? Who's getting your attention? Your children? Your partner? No one's getting your attention. The only people that are getting attention are those images on the screen or whatever's going on the screen. So to free up your mind and relieve yourself from, you know, it's like you going to work or wherever you're going and you leave your phone. What's the feeling you get when you leave your phone?
Well, I think for most people, what's it? A bit of anxiety, a bit like, oh, part of me's left, you know what I mean? And they need that back, you know?
You don't feel right until that phone's back in your hand.
That's right.
You know, and that's just from leaving your phone, let alone anything else. So you've got to understand that there's feelings that emerge just from your device not being with you, let alone what else comes with the sort of emotional melee that goes on through social media and your feelings daily.
Are there any ways in which social media can positively impact mental health, such as like a community support or connections and stuff like that?
Oh, they've got so many different organisations. I can't even think about all of them. COOF, there's loads of different organisations that deal with mental health that got adverts coming up every second because it's necessary. I mean, after COVID, lots of mental health went through the roof. I think there's, between the ages of 8 and 25, 1 in 5 young people have suffered from mental health in some way, shape or form. 1 in 7 adults suffer from mental health. So there's a real need for organisations, and they're out there and they're advertised. I think that, coupled with what happened with the George Floyd incident and how that had an impact on people as well, there was just this sort of compounded mental health situation going on because of these sort of this social phenomenon, first the COVID and then George Floyd's death, and how that global event had an impact on the mind of a lot of people from everywhere. You know, not just black people.
Yeah. How does cyberbullying on social media platforms affect mental health, and what strategies can victims use to cope?
Oh, Jesus Christ! You have to have good support systems. Like cyberbullying, like I feel sorry for young people in schools nowadays. I don't know how they survive. If you become a victim of cyberbullying, it can be relentless, more so than face-to-face bullying, 24-hour in its relentlessness. So there's no breathing space.
Yeah.
You're not getting bullied by 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 people. You can get bullied by hundreds of people at once over a picture, over anything, you know. So for me, the best way is just to keep a low profile on social media as a young person. Don't put anything out there that creates too much attention. And it's hard to say that because some young people, they have this fantasy in their head that they're going to become an influencer.
Yeah.
So once you put certain things out there, you're putting yourself at risk of making yourself susceptible. But that's down to you. You know, if you can manage that and you know what kind of content you're putting out. If you're putting out nonsensical content, gang content, some sexualized content that's going to make you look a certain way to other young people, you're going to fall victim to something bad.
Yeah.
You know, so really it's about understanding how to navigate on social media.
For real, I don't think a lot of parents are not really like overseeing what their children are intaking off there and what apps they're using and stuff like that. I think it's a coping mechanism for both sides. You know, like, oh, he's on the screen doing that, I can get on with this. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, they're just left to their own devices in a roundabout way. Do you think that increased social media usage contributes to feelings of social isolation despite being connected online?
Yeah, I think some people have just got used to it. I think it's a way of existing now. Some people don't feel isolated. They're actually freer now because they were isolated before. There's some people that, you know, didn't have a large peer group.
Yeah.
But now they got, you know, millions of people they're talking on Call of Duty or playing some game or whatever else. So I think for some people there's social isolation, and for some people there's this level of social autonomy where they're able to connect with a lot more people than they ever would in reality.
So it can work both ways, and it could be a negative and a positive.
Yeah.
What advice do you give clients about setting healthy boundaries with social media?
Well, like I said, I haven't had much clients that have got issues with social media, but if I were going to, it's about, you know, just limiting your time on there, understanding what you're watching. You know, there's people out there that have got porn addiction or whatever other addiction. You're going to have to get professional help for that anyway, you know. But just start cutting down on screen time, thinking about doing other things like listening to some music or reading a book or doing those things that were sort of natural, normal practices back in the day. Maybe start adopting those again. The phone or the electronic device has become like everyone's little personal Bible that they're walking around with, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's become quite a strange thing, man. I think to have a device with so much capabilities, you know, it's futuristic shit. If you come from I'm born in 1969, having a device that you can video, record, watch YouTube, well, YouTube never used to exist, watch clips from around the world, video call someone that's in America, like, it's science fiction stuff, you know what I mean?
I remember watching programs, and I think the first book that I ever personally bought for myself was a book where like the guy was trying to talk about his predictions of what he sees will be coming into the future. And then I'll never forget it. There was a segment where he was talking about, you know, you'll be everything. You would have a device where you can do everything on. You'll be talking to people through it. You'll be calling people through it. You could do your banking. And I remember as a kid, I was like, what the hell are they talking about? This is nonsense. And then fast forward now, you know, we're talking to people right now who are going to be looking at their phones and, you know, all of these devices. So I totally get that, man.
I think one of the things though it's done as well, which is quite upsetting for me, if you come from a certain era, you know that, you know, it was just me and my mum growing up, but if we went to anyone's house, you go into the yard, you say hello to the adults, then you go in the bedroom with the rest of the kids and you don't come back in the front room again.
That's it.
Yeah, you might sneak out, two of you, and want a little drink, and you crack open the door and you're like, rah, God, should we ask? I don't know. Like, it might get told off. And then someone says, yeah, what do you want? Oh, I want a drink, please. And then after you get a drink, and then you're back in the bedroom with the kids.
That's right.
Yeah, now social media's created a situation where the kids are adults. They can converse with adults in an adult way and think they're big.
Yeah.
And then the lines are blurred. And that's why now young people think they can talk a certain way with adults because they've been given a platform to be adult-like.
Yep.
And with the influx of information that they've got available to them, some young people speak like adults and can, you know, debate back and forth on a certain level.
Yeah, they've been given that space to do that, innit? In reality, yeah. All right, I wanted to talk to you about like AI and mental health, because I'm finding that everybody is using AI. Well, when it first came out, everybody was kind of dibbling dabbling, but now I think it's coming a lot more to like an everyday use now. So how do you see the role of artificial intelligence evolving in mental health care? You know, particularly in therapy and support.
What can you say? What if I, you know, maybe I could play the role of Negro Damas and say, look, you know what might happen? There might be no need for therapists and counsellors and psychotherapists in the future. You know, will that be, will AI be something that puts people out of work? We've moved in a direction now. If you look at the changing landscape, the social landscape, we've gone from a time where you could go to the shops and get to know people that are behind the till. Now you're going to self-checkout. Yeah. The gyms are the same. There ain't no one populating the gyms. There's no workers. You go in there, you tap in your code, and you go in there. There's one worker you might see, but you might not see that worker the next day or the next day. Things have become, they're managing themselves through machinery, you know. So what's going to happen in the future? Is there going to be need for therapists? When I know people that is it ChatGPT, yeah.
This is it,
Like, people are creating documents and filling out application forms and
through the thing,
making personal statements and doing all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I've seen some.
Yeah.
I've seen some glorious looking personal statements that, like, I'm like, right, like, oh, ChatGPT, what?
Yeah.
You know, I would have written that up myself.
Yeah.
So, you know, the evolution of AI and its impact on society, I can't even fathom at the moment, because I never thought we was going to have self-checkout, and that's something basic.
Yeah.
You know, let alone you have a room where you go and there's no one there and maybe a voice.
Do you know what I wanted to ask you though? Where do you think we're going with all of this? Because this has just come to me. Like, there's this puzzle game that I've got where you know, you actually, I like doing puzzles. You know, the putting the pieces together and all that. So this is the part I don't like, is when you're doing the thing and you complete it, it goes into an advert. And the advert I remember seeing the other day was where it's like a ChatGPT or whatever it's called, yeah. But it's like it's called a an AI girlfriend. So this is your AI girlfriend. You can ask it to send you certain type of pictures, you know, have certain conversations. I remember sitting there saying, where are we going with all of this? Because I feel like there's like a desensitization between us all. You know, sitting down, speaking to a therapist, seeing a therapist, and a therapist, you know, showing you a certain amount of empathy and having that connection. Now you can, you know, are people now going to turn to an AI to be giving them counsel?
You know, it's like this. What's the level of affinity you have with technology? Young people now, they've got a tight knit relationship with technology. You know, I think for people born in the 60s and 70s, early 80s, all right, you're down with technology. You're not fully immersed in it. You might watch the TV, have a big screen TV, have the PlayStation 5, but you don't know how to do the things kids know how to do on tablets and devices, you know, and that connection they've got with those things. There's a disconnect with older generations and those devices. So to embrace that and also to be born into it. Imagine you're a 20, 30 child born into what's going on.
It's normal,
That's
isn't it?
normal stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you seeing something, you going into a room and they got it's like cams. Will cams operate the same way in 20, 30 years? Who knows? Will therapy be online more than anything else, just like schooling?
Yeah.
Or the state of schools get so bad, but that they have to look to develop it on a platform of it being at home, and you just being at home being homeschooled on a certain level, but you know, nationally, more than anything else, things are going to change.
They will.
You know, and people have got to get ready, because those people that are our age and older, they're going to have a hard time adjusting, and if you can't adapt, you're going to feel pressure.
That's right.
You know, and that's the main thing. Since understanding life, it's all about adaptation. Through the times that from when I existed in like going to school in 1981, going to secondary school, the 80s were a certain way, then the 90s were a certain way, 2000 to 2010 was a certain way, 2010 to 2020 was a certain way. And you know, we're always in a state of flux, having to change with the environment and the policies and procedures and people's mental states, because nowadays we're actually walking around and it's quite tentative out there. It's unpredictable. You know, if you walk around without your spider senses at work, you can become a victim quite easily, you know, and we've seen it with kids that have been stabbed in the neck or whatever and killed just by random people and just by random attacks, and just this sort of lack of care for the next man or woman.
What ethical considerations arise when using AI, like in mental health situations and settings?
But I'm wondering how they're setting a framework for that, because just having that AI therapist sounds unethical.
It doesn't. It sounds mad. Yeah.
So, you know, I think for me, those people that are creators and developing in these things, there's another level of thinking in regards to an ethical framework, because it doesn't seem right anyway. You know, I don't know in what capacity it's happening at the moment. I don't know of anyone that's actually entertained by a AI therapist, but you know, there are.
I wanted to ask you, sorry to just jump in though, because as you're saying that, something just came to me. You know, like they've got these AIs where you can call up the phone, and then you'll say whatever you're saying, and the AI will respond. You know, like you got Siri and you're talking. It's the same sort of thing. So, and the technology is getting so advanced. How do you even know that you're talking to a computer? How would you know?
You don't.
It's mad.
You don't. But you know, it's like it's sort of similar to there's frustration in it with certain things when you're older. So you might look at what's going on now and get frustrated. How can they have these AI therapists if that's something that's going to emerge? And then you're already in that sort of same place with paying your bills and phoning up organisations, and you can't speak to no one human, you know.
Real.
So generationally, there's always going to be a problem. While as new school young people, that won't be a problem so much. You know, hearing an AI person talk to you about your issues, or just being on hold while some automated voice deals with you. Young people aren't so upset about those things, like how you are when you're a bit older, you know what I mean?
So, you know, dealing with that human connection, how important is like human connection within like the world of therapy? Or
It's so important that you can straight away understand the difference from doing one-to-one face-to-face therapy and doing online therapy or on the phone therapy. That you can feel the disconnection emotionally through the screen, and there's like a lack of presence. There's something missing. That's the same as on the telephone. So it's very important. There's a lot of things going on in the transference, the counter-transference, in regards to projective identification and certain dynamics that you observe and you feel in the room that's sort of lost when you're on the screen or on the phone. So for me, it's very important. And that's another thing that, if it does come to fruition, that type of way of practicing with AI, that's going to be something that's going to be missing.
so, you know, as we're on that page, like, what are your thoughts on using AI for diagnosing mental health conditions, and are there any risks involved doing that?
I was on one thing the other day. Something popped up on Insta. And you clicked on some things and it'd give a diagnosis of whatever you was clicking. I said, all right, I don't know how to feel about this. I just didn't know how to feel about it. What are you going to do? Go through that and then someone ends up killing themselves? You know, what happens next? It's very, very shaky ground, but obviously everything's in development. So, you know, people develop that, have the policy and procedures around it, so things don't go wrong for people, hopefully, because in any capacity, whether you're seeing a real life therapist or getting information through AI to establish a diagnosis or whatever, things can go wrong either way.
So what do you think the future for mental health is? How can you predict the future of mental health care, and will it evolve with the advancement in AI and social media and stuff like that? Do you reckon those things will play a role?
It's like being disabled. And that sounds really strange, but if you become disabled tomorrow and you got money, you might have prosthetic legs.
Right.
If you're living where we're living, there's none of that, you know. So
wheelchair, you got to keep it rolling.
Yeah.
Moving. Yeah.
You know, so again, class, money, there's a difference in what you're able to attain, what you're able to get as a consequence of your financial status or your socio-economic status. So, you know, for me, if you've got money, you'll have access to good stuff. If you haven't, you won't.
I hear that.
You know, we live in a capitalist society that if you've got the money to live a certain way, you live good. And if you haven't, you don't, and you're scrambling. But what comes with living good? If you've got enough money, you live in a good area, you've got good healthcare, you've got good police education, you have all these good things. You go down to the shop, there ain't a post office or off license, and the job centre like in close vicinity, and the betting shop. The shops where you live, they aren't open past 8, 9 o'clock. Can't find a off license around unless it's selling expensive drinks. They ain't selling nothing cheap. So, you know, a lot of things are just based on your money and where you're living.
Yeah, makes perfect sense, bro. All right, so the final bit here for the mental health and with the AI, coping strategies. What coping strategies do you recommend for individuals navigating the complexities of social media and AI in relation to their mental health?
It's already a hard one if you're already experiencing difficulties. You need to seek some real good advice from a healthcare professional in some capacity. You know, you're taking a risk. For me, you're taking a risk rolling around on social media looking for answers through a tick box, this, that and the next to give you answers. You're going to have to make some phone calls. You're going to have, you know, if you've got good people around you, that's good. But if you haven't, Google, have a little look around, find out what's going on. Always, you know, there's things that you can do nowadays that you could never do back in the days, like looking for a product, and then you go, review that product and find out if it's any good or how many people like it. Like, do a little bit of research and find out who can support you, because there are really good organisations out there that are charities that can provide you with low-cost therapy. You know. As low as £5-10 a session. So, you know, just look for those charities as well that are out there that are therapeutic, and hopefully you can get some help, because it's horrible taking a risk on your mental health. You know, especially when there's so much charlatans out there. There's people out there that pretend to be therapists and life coaches. They don't know what they're doing. You know, they'll mess you up more than anything else.
Yeah. I hear that, man. So it's just seek out the authentic therapeutic individuals.
Yeah, and plus, you know, you might have to go through a few therapists. You might find there's some people that you establish a connection with straight away, and then develop a good therapeutic alliance. And sometimes you just don't connect. And sometimes there's an unconscious fit. You might come across a therapist that doesn't look or sound like the therapist you think you'd need, but it is them. You know.
Dopeness. Thank you for your time, brother.
No problem there.
Respect, man.
Yo, what's outside is within. The mind regulates the hand that masters the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is mightier still. The stargate to the mind's revealed. The vortex.